Reverend Jarrett Maupin here, if we can, for a moment.
Let's first recap that 4 officers were killed in Dallas, 7 others injured in Dallas at a Black Lives Matter anti-police protest that was going on, and it was peaceful until shots rang out and 11 officers were injured, some of them gravely injured, and we know tonight that 4 have been killed. There is a protest planned in Phoenix tomorrow. Jared Maupin, a community leader in the African-American community, joining us on the phone. Mr. Maupin, thank you for being with us tonight. This is beyond tragic, and I think there's a lot of concern as we go forward with some of the protests planned in other cities around the country that it could also turn violent. Are you concerned?
Well, I'm first of all, I'm deeply saddened and outraged by the actions of the renegade anarchists, really, that took the lives of 4 officers in Dallas. That is not the Kingian tradition of civil rights. And what I can say to bring comfort to your viewers is that at least here in Phoenix, under my leadership and with hard work, we've never had an act of violence at any of our nonviolent protest demonstrations, and they've all been nonviolent. So I'm confident in our track record and just extremely disappointed in extremists that are using this as an excuse to murder and kill.
Reverend Maupin, what happens tomorrow at this protest in Phoenix? It will go on as planned, and you expect the police will be there side by side with you as you exercise your First Amendment rights, right? I
invite them to come.
Right.
And the chief, you know, every time we march, we're under threat. So I understand how they feel. And you both know from covering it, we've had some pretty tense demonstrations, particularly last year and the year before around Remain Brisbane and Michelle Clouseau. The protest tomorrow will go from City Hall to the police department, from the police department headquarters to the county attorney's office, and then from the county attorney's office, it's a long march up to, we're debating even now, up to this late hour, whether or not to go into the Roosevelt neighborhood or the FQ Story neighborhood. But we will end the march in a white, middle-class residential area.
Did you ever think about calling it off?
No, not once. Not once.
In light of what happened in Dallas tonight, you think it's good to go forward?
Absolutely,
okay.
Absolutely.
Has anybody from the Reverend Maupin, has anybody from the city reached out to you tonight and said we need to at least look at the security here? Have you
know, the chief
to
offered to take me to breakfast. This is not about me. The chief, I've talked with them about the kind of dialogue we need to have. I
Tonight,
gave them some options.
To them?
I spoke to them. I have a phone call to return to them as we speak. But look, there is a serious issue about racism and policing and police brutality, and we have to address it. So unless they're willing to take a meaningful step, I don't want to just have breakfast. I can have breakfast with the chief anytime.
Reverend Maupin, how do you feel we stand on that issue in Phoenix compared to the rest of the country?
I think we're making strides in Phoenix. But let me tell you, we've got body cameras coming. The sheriff's done an excellent job. All of his guys have them. But even though we have the racial sensitivity training, ever since they fired the consultant, it's stopped. So we're a year behind on that. The mental health training is not where it should be. And I think Washington Post said today, we're up 5% in police brutality-related killings, shootings. Even though this is a part of our national dialogue, even though we are making all these policy and political posturing we see going on, even though that's happening, these types of killings have increased by 5%.
What does that tell you?
It tells me that there is a sociological and a cultural shift dynamic that has to change, and that comes through conversation. It's going to be extremely uncomfortable. But I'm willing to sit down at that table and do that, and we haven't seen that willingness from City Hall. Look, they won't even admit that they paid the family of Michelle Clouseau $700,000 to settle that claim. The public needs to know that.
Reverend Maupin, I'm sure that you were seeing a lot of posts today on social media in light of the shooting death of a man in Louisiana and one in Minnesota, which by all accounts was tragic. But there were a lot of posts on social media by celebrities, politicians, etc., that were very anti-police officer. Now, you have to admit that when it's all said and done with these investigations, one or more officers may be charged or they may be penalized in some way, shape, or form. But do you think that this kind of rhetoric hurts all police officers, many of whom and most of whom do an exemplary job every day?
Well, I'll tell you, I think there's two things at play here. Number one, are all cops bad? No, absolutely not. Number two, is it more than just a few bad apples or some racists with badges? Yes. It's a cultural problem within policing in this country. It's been highly, hyper-aggressive policing, highly militarized, racial profiling. We know there are issues. All the experts say there are. So we have to examine, has the lack of indictments or convictions emboldened officers to do this? Are officers that are good not saying enough when they see or experience something that is bad from their fellow officers? We really have to take a look at that. And my hope, my real dream, if you care to know, is one day for our country to do what South Africa did. I never thought I'd see the day when I longed for America to do what South Africa did, as ugly as the fight around apartheid was. But it's time for national, federally sponsored, state-sponsored race and reconciliation talks. It is the issue that continuously puts our society in turmoil and causes people to lose their lives. It's time for us to have national talks about race and reconciliation so we can come together.
Reverend Maupin, I appreciate it. We're going to be checking in with you tomorrow, and there will be more dialogue, obviously. Horrible event tonight in Dallas. We're going to go to a quick break. 4 officers dead, we know that, 11 shot. Apparently 2 snipers on high purchase, shooting down on officers trying to keep the peace at a Black Lives Matter and anti-police protest tonight in Dallas.
And Reverend Maupin saying that the protest plan for Phoenix tomorrow will go on as planned. We'll take a break and be right back.